My name is David, and my life took a turn I never thought possible. I was once a simple man living in a quiet suburb where everyone knew each other. The houses were modest, with picket fences and well-kept lawns. My wife, Sarah, and I had been married for nearly a decade. We were the picture of the American dream: a decent house, a steady job as an accountant, and a son, Jake, who was the light of our lives. However, beneath the surface of our seemingly perfect life, there were cracks that I failed to see. Sarah was the kind of woman who could light up a room with her smile. She was beautiful, intelligent, and ambitious. She had a job as a marketing executive at a local firm and was well respected in her field. Our life together was filled with laughter and shared dreams, or so I thought. I had always trusted her, believing that love was enough to keep our relationship strong. But as I would soon learn, trust can be a fragile thing. The first signs of trouble started with subtle shifts in her behavior. Sarah began spending more and more time at work, often coming home late. When she did come home, she seemed distant, lost in her thoughts. I attributed it to the pressures of her job. After all, marketing can be a demanding field. My own work was equally challenging, but I always made time for family. I assumed she was simply caught up in her deadlines. One evening, I decided to surprise her. I cleared my schedule and prepared a nice dinner, complete with her favorite wine. I was excited to reconnect after weeks of feeling like strangers. But as I waited for her to come home, my excitement turned into worry when the clock struck 8, then 9, and still no sign of her. I called her phone, but it went straight to voicemail. A pit formed in my stomach and my mind raced with possibilities. By 10 o'clock, I was packing around the house, my heart racing. That's when I received a message from her, a simple text saying she was working late and would be home soon. But something about it felt off. It lacked warmth. It was as if she was just sending it to appease me. I felt a wave of anxiety wash over me, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. I decided to go to bed and hoped for the best. When she finally walked through the door around midnight, I could see she wasn't alone. The scent of another man's cologne lingered on her, and her hair was slightly disheveled. I tried to play it cool, pretending to be asleep, but inside my heart was pounding. I needed answers, and they wouldn't come easily. The next day, I decided to confront her. I had to know if my suspicions were true. I approached her as she was getting ready for work, trying to keep my voice steady. "Sarah, can we talk?" I asked, my palms sweaty and my heart racing. "Sure, what's on your mind?" she replied, her tone casual as if nothing was wrong. "I noticed you've been coming home late a lot lately. Is everything okay?" I asked, looking directly into her eyes. She hesitated for a moment, a flicker of something crossing her face, guilt perhaps. "Oh, it's just work. You know how it is," she said, avoiding my gaze. I could feel the tension in the air, thick and suffocating. "Is there someone else?" I blurted out, my voice barely above a whisper. Her reaction was immediate. The color drained from her face, and for a split second I saw fear in her eyes. "What are you talking about?" she shot back defensively. "I'm just asking if there's someone else, Sarah. It's okay if there is. I just need to know the truth," I pressed. "I can't believe you would even think that. I love you, David," she exclaimed, but I could hear the tremor in her voice. As she left for work, I was left alone in a whirlwind of emotions: confusion, anger, and a deep-seated pain I had never experienced before. I knew I needed to find out the truth. I needed to know if my wife, whom I loved dearly, had betrayed me. Little did I know, the discovery of her infidelity would set off a chain of events that would change my life forever. My heart ached for the love we once shared, but my mind began to conjure thoughts of revenge. I couldn't let this slide. I needed to make her feel the pain she had caused me. Would I be able to carry out this plan? Only time would tell, but I knew deep down that I was willing to do whatever it took to reclaim my dignity and restore justice for the betrayal I had suffered. The following days were a blur of anxiety and despair. I tried to maintain a sense of normalcy for Jake's sake, but it felt like I was living in a facade that was crumbling around me. I went through the motions of work, parenting, and even small talk with neighbors, but my mind was consumed by thoughts of Sarah and the possibility that she was cheating on me. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off, so I decided to take matters into my own hands. I began to investigate. I started by checking her phone. I knew it was an invasion of privacy, but my need for answers outweighed any moral hesitation. One evening, while she was in the shower, I picked up her phone, my heart racing as I unlocked it. To my dismay, I found nothing incriminating. There were no suspicious texts, no emails, not even any missed calls from unknown numbers. Just as I was about to give up, I noticed an app I had never seen before, a messaging app called Signal. It was encrypted, which meant any conversation she had would be hidden from prying eyes. My stomach twisted in knots. I felt like I was onto something. After she got out of the shower, I confronted her again. "Sarah, what's this app on your phone? Why do you need an encrypted messaging service? What are you talking about?" She shot back, surprise etched on her face. "It's right here," I said, holding up her phone and pointing at the app icon. "Why do you have this?" "It's just a secure messaging app for work," she insisted, her voice rising defensively. "You're being paranoid, David." "Paranoid or not, I need to know the truth," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "If there's something going on, I want you to tell me." "Nothing is going on," she yelled, and I could see the strain in her eyes. That night, after she fell asleep, I couldn't stop thinking about that app. I decided to do some digging online. I learned that Signal was often used for private conversations, especially affairs. The more I read, the more my heart sank. I felt like I was spiraling deeper into a pit of despair. The next day, I took a personal day from work, telling my boss I had some family matters to attend to. It was time to gather more evidence. I needed to know who this work friend was that had taken my wife's attention away from our family. With a heavy heart, I drove to her office, hoping to catch her red-handed or, at the very least, overhear something that would lead me to the truth. As I parked the car and walked towards the building, I felt like a detective on a mission. I waited for her to arrive, trying to blend in with the crowd of employees. After what felt like an eternity, I saw Sarah walking toward the entrance, dressed in a sleek black dress that accentuated her curves. She looked beautiful and confident, but I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. I followed her inside, keeping a safe distance. I could see her chatting with a few colleagues, but my focus was on the man standing in front of her, a tall, handsome guy with an easy smile. They shared laughter, and I felt a pang of jealousy hit me hard. I leaned against a wall, trying to appear nonchalant, but my heart raced as I watched them closely. After a few minutes, I saw them step aside, out of earshot from the others. My heart pounded wildly as I attempted to listen to their conversation. That's when I heard it, her laughter, the way she looked at him, and the intimacy in their body language. It was like a dagger piercing through my chest. I felt sick, the bile rising in my throat. In that moment, I knew. I didn't need confirmation from anyone. It was as clear as day. Sarah was having an affair. The pain was overwhelming, but it quickly morphed into rage. I had to do something. I couldn't just sit back and let her betray me like this. I decided then and there that I would not only confront her, but would also make her pay for the agony she had caused. As I drove back home that day, plans began to formulate in my mind. I thought about how I could turn the tables and make her feel the same betrayal. I didn't have all the details yet, but I was determined to gather evidence that would expose her in the worst way possible. I would need a plan, something elaborate to ensure she understood the pain she inflicted on me. That night, I sat on the couch, staring blankly at the television, but my mind was racing. I started to think about how I could catch her in the act. I needed to find something concrete that would force her to confess. I considered hiring a private investigator, but that felt too distant. I wanted to be the one to catch her. There was a thrill in that thought, a sense of control I'd lost in the marriage. I decided I would follow her, track her movements, and see who she was really spending her time with. Perhaps there would be a time when they would meet up, and I could finally confront her. The thought of her shock when the truth came crashing down on her filled me with a sense of purpose. I was no longer just a victim. I was a man seeking justice. And so began my journey into the depths of betrayal, intrigue, and ultimately revenge. I was ready to dig into the mud and uncover the truth, no matter what it took. The following days were consumed by my new mission. I started by changing my routine. I set my alarm for early mornings, which allowed me to watch Sarah as she prepared for work. I noticed the little things, the way she smiled at her reflection, the way she chose her outfits carefully, as if dressing to impress someone. Each day, the weight of my suspicions grew heavier on my shoulders, but I knew I had to remain patient. I devised a plan to follow her discreetly. I was not a stalker by nature, but the thought of Sarah betraying our vows fueled my resolve. I invested in a high-quality pair of binoculars and thought about getting a small camera to document everything. I couldn't risk missing any evidence that would prove her infidelity. The first day of my surveillance was nerve-wracking. I parked down the street from her office, trying to maintain a casual appearance while my heart raced. I watched as she arrived, greeted her colleagues, and disappeared inside. I had a clear view of the entrance. I waited and watched, my mind racing with thoughts of what I hoped to uncover. Hours went by and the sun reached its zenith. I had grown impatient, but I reminded myself that patience was key. Around lunchtime, I noticed that handsome guy again, the one who had spoken with her at the office. He approached Sarah with a casual demeanor. They exchanged a few words before walking toward a nearby cafe. My heart sank. This was my chance. I quickly grabbed my camera and followed them at a distance. It felt as if I was in a suspenseful movie, the kind where the protagonist uncovers the dark secrets of someone they love. I couldn't help but feel a surge of adrenaline as I approached the cafe, choosing a table where I could keep an eye on them without being too conspicuous. From my vantage point, I could see their interactions more clearly. They sat close together, leaning in as they exchanged laughter and smiles. My stomach churned at the sight. I snapped a few photos, documenting the betrayal as it unfolded in front of me. I wanted evidence, not just for myself but for the confrontation I was planning. As I observed them, I felt a strange mix of emotions. Part of me wanted to walk over and confront them right then and there to expose her lies, but another part of me craved a more calculated approach. I wanted her to feel the weight of her betrayal, to understand how deeply she had hurt me. After an hour, they stood up and exchanged a lingering hug that sent my heart plummeting. I snapped a few more pictures as they parted ways. Sarah walked back to the office, and I followed, careful to keep my distance. I felt like a predator stalking its prey, and the thought unnerved me, but it was necessary. Over the next week, I continued my surveillance, each day gathering more evidence. I discovered their routine. They often met for lunch at the cafe and occasionally went out for drinks after work. I learned that his name was Mark, a new marketing consultant who had joined Sarah's firm a few months ago. I felt sick with anger, knowing that this man was the one taking my wife's attention away from our family. With each new piece of information I gathered, my plan for revenge crystallized in my mind. I wanted to confront Sarah with undeniable proof of her infidelity, shattering the illusion of our life together. But I didn't want the confrontation to be just about anger. I wanted to make her feel the pain she had caused me. I thought about how to stage this encounter. I considered inviting her to a dinner at our home, setting the scene for a calm conversation before revealing the truth. Or perhaps I could catch her off guard at the cafe, showing her the photos as I confronted her. The possibilities were endless, but I needed to execute this perfectly. Eventually, I decided on a plan that would ensure maximum impact. I would wait until she returned home one evening after seeing Mark, then I would confront her. The thought of her walking through that door, expecting a quiet evening only to be met with the truth, filled me with a perverse sense of anticipation. To build up the tension, I began acting as normal as possible. I resumed my routine of asking her about her day, feigning interest in her long hours at work. I even made her dinner one night, putting on a show of normalcy. It was excruciating, knowing what I knew, but I had to play my part to ensure that my plan went smoothly. On the day of the confrontation, I felt a mix of dread and excitement. I had the photos ready, printed out and placed in a folder on the kitchen counter. I made sure to leave the lights dimmed, creating an atmosphere that would be conducive to a serious discussion. I wanted her to feel the weight of her actions and understand the gravity of the situation. When she finally arrived home that evening, I could see the glow of her smile as she walked in. She greeted me, seemingly unaware of the storm brewing beneath the surface. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what I was about to do. It was time to unveil the truth, to bring my plan to fruition and make her understand the depth of her betrayal. "Sarah, can we talk?" I said, my voice steady despite the tumult inside me. "Sure, honey, what's up?" she replied, a hint of curiosity in her voice. I gestured for her to sit at the table, my heart pounding in my chest. I needed to remain calm, to present my evidence without letting my emotions overwhelm me. This was my moment, and I was ready to take back the power she had stolen from me. As Sarah sat down at the table, her expression shifted from casual curiosity to a slight frown. I could tell she sensed the tension in the air. It was as if she could feel the storm brewing just beneath the surface. I took a deep breath, my heart racing as I prepared to unleash the truth that I had meticulously gathered over the past few weeks. "Sarah," I began, my voice steady but firm. "I need to talk to you about something serious, something that has been bothering me for a while now." She opened her mouth to respond, but I cut her off before she could speak. "I know about Mark." I watched her face pale as my words hung in the air. Her eyes widened, and I could see the realization wash over her. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice shaky. "I mean, I know about your little lunches and drinks after work. I know about your affair with him," I said, pulling out the folder from the counter and placing it in front of her. "Here are the photos I took, you can see for yourself." I slid the first picture toward her. It was a shot of her and Mark laughing together at the cafe, their bodies leaning into each other as if they were the only two people in the world. I watched as her expression changed from disbelief to shock. "David, I can explain," she stammered, her voice trembling. "Explain what, Sarah? That you've been lying to me for months. That you've been giving your heart to another man while neglecting our marriage." I leaned forward, my anger boiling beneath the surface. "I deserve better than this. Our son deserves better than this." She looked at the photos, her hands trembling as she picked them up one by one. I could see tears welling in her eyes, but I felt no sympathy. All I could think about was the betrayal, the countless sleepless nights I had endured while she was off playing house with someone else. "David, please," she begged. "We can work through this. I never meant to hurt you." "Then why did you?" I shot back, my voice rising. "You had a choice, Sarah. You could have come to me and talked about us. Instead, you chose to run into the arms of another man." "I was lonely," she admitted, her voice cracking. "Things between us had been different for so long, it felt like we were just going through the motions." "You think that justifies cheating on me? Do you think it gives you a free pass?" I couldn't help but raise my voice, the betrayal igniting a fire within me. "You have no idea how much this hurts." As she cried, I felt a sense of satisfaction wash over me. It was a twisted comfort knowing I had the upper hand. She was vulnerable now, and for once I was the one holding the cards. I had spent so long feeling powerless in our relationship, but now I was reclaiming my strength. "Do you love him?" I asked, my voice suddenly low and dangerous. She hesitated, her eyes darting around as if searching for the right words. I don't know, it's complicated." "Complicated?" I scoffed, my anger bubbling over. "You either love him or you don't. You either want a future with him or you want a future with your family. Make a choice, Sarah. But know that whatever you decide, this marriage is over." I stood up, my chair scraping against the floor as I paced around the kitchen. I needed to release this pent-up energy somehow. The adrenaline coursed through my veins, and for the first time I felt a sense of control, the power that had been stripped from me for so long. "David, please don't say that," she pleaded, her voice breaking. "I made a mistake. I never stopped loving you." "Love? What kind of love allows someone to betray their spouse?" I shot back, feeling the heat rise in my veins. "You need to understand the weight of your actions. This isn't just a mistake, it's a choice. You chose to hurt me." I could see her breaking down in front of me, tears streaming down her cheeks. Part of me felt a twinge of guilt. After all, we had shared years of love and laughter. But another part of me reveled in the moment. I wanted her to suffer just as I had. I wanted her to feel the consequences of her actions, and I was determined to ensure she did. "I want you to understand what it feels like to be betrayed," I said, my voice lowering to a whisper. "And I want you to know that I will never forget this. You've broken the trust we built over years, and I can't just brush that aside." She looked up at me, her eyes pleading. "What do you want from me?" "Honestly, I want you to feel the weight of this decision. I want you to be alone, to realize what you've thrown away." I want you to lose everything that mattered to you." I paused, letting the words sink in. "And if you think this is going to end without consequences, you're sorely mistaken." As I watched her sob, a mixture of anger and satisfaction coursed through me. I had finally taken a stand. I wouldn't allow her to walk away from this unscathed. She had taken my love for granted, and now she would experience the fallout of her actions. "I'm leaving," I said, my voice steady. "I need time to think, to figure out what I want. But know this, Sarah, I won't be coming back until I'm ready. And if you think you can just carry on with your life as if nothing happened, you're dead wrong." With that, I turned on my heel and left her sitting there, tears streaming down her face. I walked out of the house, feeling a strange sense of liberation mixed with bitterness. I had executed my plan, but the aftermath was far from what I had imagined. As I drove aimlessly through the streets, I couldn't shake the feeling that my life had irrevocably changed. I was no longer just David, her husband. I was now a man scorned, determined to reclaim the life I had lost. But as I contemplated my next steps, I wondered if the revenge I sought would truly bring me the closure I needed. Would my heart ever heal from the betrayal? And what would I do now that I had crossed this line? Leaving the house felt like stepping off a cliff into an abyss. I had achieved the initial satisfaction of confronting Sarah, but the reality of what lay ahead began to sink in. I felt unmoored, like a ship lost at sea without a compass. I had spent the last few weeks gathering evidence and building my case against her, but now the weight of the decisions loomed over me. I decided to stay at a local motel for the time being. It was a far cry from the comfort of my home, but I needed space to think without being constantly reminded of my crumbling marriage. The room was small and bare, the kind of place where the walls felt like they were closing in on you. I spent my days in a haze, replaying the confrontation over and over in my mind. Days turned into weeks, and the silence between Sarah and me grew deafening. I barely spoke to her, responding to her texts with short, curt replies. I could feel her reaching out, trying to bridge the gap I had created, but I wasn't ready to engage. I needed to let the dust settle to think about what I truly wanted. During this time, I leaned heavily on my close friend Tom. He had been my confidant throughout this ordeal, and I needed someone to provide clarity amid the chaos. We met for drinks one evening at a local bar, and as I recounted the events, I could feel the tension in my chest easing ever so slightly. "I think you did the right thing confronting her," Tom said, sipping his beer. "You're not just a victim in this, David. You're allowed to feel angry and hurt." "Yeah, but now what? I feel lost, like I've crossed a line I can't uncross," I admitted, swirling the ice in my glass. "I thought exposing her would bring me some sense of closure, but instead it just feels empty." "Maybe it's time to think about what you want for yourself. Do you want to try to fix things, or do you think it's better to walk away?" Tom asked, his brow furrowing as he leaned in, trying to gauge my feelings. The question hung in the air, heavy and foreboding. I had never envisioned my life without Sarah, but the thought of continuing in a marriage built on lies felt unbearable. I wanted to believe we could find a way back to each other, but could I ever truly trust her again? I don't know. Part of me wants to salvage what we had, I confessed, but another part of me feels like I'd be settling for less than I deserve. "I think you need to give it time," Tom suggested. "You've been through a lot. Don't make any rash decisions while emotions are still raw." I nodded, appreciating his advice. I needed to process everything, but I also felt a nagging urge for revenge, something deeper than just confronting her. I wanted to make her feel the sting of betrayal she had inflicted on me. During one of my late-night bouts of introspection, I devised a plan, a way to ensure Sarah understood the consequences of her actions. I couldn't just walk away without making sure she felt the full weight of her betrayal. I began to think of ways to turn the tables, using her own infidelity against her. I reached out to Mark, the man who had come between us. I wanted to confront him, to let him know the chaos he had caused. I wasn't interested in violence. I simply wanted to instill a sense of fear in him. I found his social media profile and sent him a message, asking him to meet me at a nearby bar. When I arrived, I was filled with a mix of anger and resolve. Mark didn't know what was coming, and I intended to make sure he understood the ramifications of his actions. As he walked in, I could see the confidence on his face. He seemed oblivious to the storm brewing behind my calm exterior. "David, right," he greeted, extending a hand. "Yeah, thanks for meeting me," I replied, shaking his hand firmly. "We need to talk." He furrowed his brow, sensing the tension between us. "Is this about Sarah?" "Of course it is," I said, my voice low and controlled. "You think it's fine to steal another man's wife without consequences?" Mark's expression shifted from confusion to defensiveness. "Look, I didn't know she was married when we started seeing each other." "Really? You didn't think to ask, or maybe you just didn't care," I shot back, feeling the anger wash over me. "You've disrupted my family and caused a rift that I can't ignore." "I didn't mean for any of this to happen," he stammered, backing away slightly. "Sarah said things weren't good between you two." "Is. That's supposed to make it okay." I leaned in closer, my voice dropping to a whisper. "You think you're some hero for coming to her rescue. You've ruined everything, and I want you to know that I'm not going to let this go easily." He looked nervous, shifting in his seat as I continued. "I'm not interested in violence, but I will make sure you understand that your actions have consequences. You need to step back and leave my family alone." "I never meant to hurt anyone," he said, his voice shaking. "You need to think about what you're doing. If you don't, I will make sure everyone knows about your little affair with my wife. This isn't just some fling. You've invaded my life, and I'm not going to let you walk away unscathed." With that, I stood up, leaving him visibly shaken. I didn't need to resort to violence or threats. A simple reminder of the consequences of his actions was enough. Returning home that evening, I felt a strange sense of satisfaction. I had taken control of the narrative, showing both Sarah and Mark that I wouldn't be a passive participant in this mess. They had played with fire, and now they would understand the repercussions. As the days turned into weeks, I continued to navigate the fallout of the affair. Sarah reached out to me multiple times, desperately trying to reconnect. She wanted to talk about counseling, about rebuilding our marriage, but I remained distant. I needed her to feel the weight of her choices. I realized that revenge was a double-edged sword. While it felt good to take action, I also recognized that it wouldn't heal the wounds left by betrayal. I was at a crossroads, torn between the desire for revenge and the hope for reconciliation. The damage was done, and I knew that whatever path I chose would shape my life moving forward. I had to decide if I wanted to try to restore what we once had, or if I was ready to walk away for good. The days dragged on, and I found myself caught in a whirlwind of emotions. Sarah's attempts to reach out had become more frantic, filled with apologies and promises of change. I listened to her voice on the phone, filled with desperation, but I remained resolute. I needed to stay firm in my decision to ensure she truly understood the gravity of her actions. One evening, after another long day of reflection, I found myself sitting at the small table in my motel room, staring at a blank wall. The silence around me was deafening, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was treading water in a sea of my own making. I recalled the moments we used to share, the laughter, the dreams, and the love that had once bound us together. But that love felt tainted now, overshadowed by betrayal. I picked up my phone and dialed Tom, seeking the comfort of a familiar voice. "Hey man," he answered, sensing the heaviness in my tone. "What's up?" "I don't know how much longer I can do this," I confessed, my voice cracking. "I want to move on, but part of me feels guilty for wanting to throw it all away." "Listen, David," he said, his tone serious. "You're not throwing anything away. You're reclaiming your life. Sarah made a choice. You need to focus on what's best for you and Jake. You deserve happiness too." His words rang true, but the weight of the decision still loomed large. I had to acknowledge the reality that our marriage, as it was irrevocably changed. The betrayal had altered the foundation of our relationship, and I couldn't pretend that everything would go back to normal simply because she said she was sorry. A few days later, I finally agreed to meet Sarah for a conversation. I chose a neutral cafe, somewhere we could talk without the weight of our home's memories pressing down on us. As I walked in, I saw her sitting at a corner table, fidgeting with her hands. The sight of her stirred a mix of emotions in me, love, anger, and sorrow all tumbling together. "Hi," she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. "Hey," I replied, taking a seat across from her. The tension in the air was palpable, and I knew we were both grappling with the weight of what had happened. "I've missed you," she started, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I know I messed up and I can't express how sorry I am. I've been doing a lot of thinking since you left." I nodded, allowing her to continue. "I realize how much I took you for granted, and I never intended for things to spiral out of control like they did. I want to work on us to fix what's broken." "Sarah," I said, interrupting her, "I appreciate your honesty, but I also need you to understand that it's not that simple. You've shattered the trust we built over the years. It's going to take more than just words to repair this." "I know," she admitted, tears spilling down her cheeks. "I'm willing to do whatever it takes. Counseling, meetings, anything you need. I love you, David." I never stopped. Her confession hung in the air, but it didn't ease the turmoil within me. I wanted to believe her, to hold on to the love we had, but I couldn't ignore the pain that lingered. "Love isn't enough to rebuild what's been broken," I said, my voice steady. "You need to understand that you made a choice. You chose to betray me, and that has consequences." "I know," she whispered, "and I'm willing to face those consequences. I'll do anything to show you how much you mean to me. I want our family back." The sincerity in her voice stirred something within me, but I remained cautious. "I need time, Sarah. I can't just jump back into this without knowing it will be different. I need to see real change, not just promises." She nodded, understanding the gravity of my words. "I'll give you time. Just know that I'm committed to making it right." We talked for what felt like hours, laying everything out on the table. We discussed our feelings, our fears, and our hopes for the future. It was a difficult conversation, but it was necessary. As I left the cafe, I felt a flicker of hope. Perhaps there was a chance for us, but it would take time, patience, and a lot of hard work. In the weeks that followed, I took things slow. I focused on my relationship with Jake, ensuring he felt loved and secure amidst the chaos. I sought therapy for myself, learning to navigate my feelings of betrayal while also exploring what I wanted moving forward. Sarah and I began attending counseling sessions together, working through the layers of hurt and disappointment. It wasn't easy. There were moments of doubt, frustration, and anger, but there were also glimmers of hope. I began to see Sarah making genuine efforts to rebuild our relationship. She was more present, actively participating in family activities and prioritizing our connection. Slowly, I started to let my guard down, a tiny bit at a time. However, I knew that trust would take time to restore. I remained vigilant, understanding that it was a process that couldn't be rushed. There were days when the pain of her betrayal resurfaced, but I found solace in the steps we were taking. We were rebuilding brick by brick. One evening, as I watched Jake play in the backyard, I caught a glimpse of Sarah standing beside me. She looked different, more grounded, and filled with an earnest desire to make things right. "Thank you for giving me another chance," she said, her voice filled with emotion. "I know I don't deserve it, but I'm going to prove to you that I can change." I nodded, feeling the weight of the past begin to lift. "I hope so, Sarah. I really do, but it's going to take time." As the sun set and painted the sky with hues of orange and pink, I realized that while the scars of betrayal would always exist, they didn't have to define us. We could either allow the past to consume us or choose to grow from it. In that moment, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. Perhaps there was still a path forward, a path that, with effort, could lead us back to the love we once shared. It wouldn't be easy, but it was worth fighting for. I took a deep breath, ready to embrace the uncertain journey ahead. One step at a time, I hoped we could find our way back to each other. And in that hope, I found strength. The strength to rebuild our lives, to reclaim our happiness, and to foster a love that could withstand the test of betrayal.